Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Amanda Waters. I'm the athletic director at Carlsbad High School. We have a great agenda. We have a very special guest to start us off. Thanks again for joining. These have been great. It's great seeing all your faces again, and happy Monday. Ira?
Ira Childress, athletic director at Gulliver Prep. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. These calls have been amazing. We appreciate all the impact, all the emails from around the country, literally going coast to coast with these Zoom calls, and and basically just trying to help people, and that's why we got started doing these calls, and it's really kind of exploded from there. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our special guest for the day. We've had a lot of great guests. To me, this guy is right at the top of the list. He's someone who's regarded in our profession as if not the best, on a small short list of the best athletic directors in the country. In 2018, he was named National Athletic Director of the Year by Business Sports Journal. He's really turned his athletic department from a really good athletic department to a great athletic department. He's a personal friend and mentor of mine for many years. People often ask me, where do I get, some of the things I think about from an athletic standpoint, and it's from this guy. Without further ado, I want to bring on a good friend of mine, Northwestern's athletic director, Mr. Jim Phillips.
Ira, Amanda, thanks for your help. I think we all would like to be in Carlsbad right now based on what I see behind you. But some of us are stuck in Chicago and other places. I thank you for the opportunity. Ira, thanks for those really nice words. I first want to just say my sincere and heartfelt thank you to each of you. I just understand what it means and what an important role that you have at the high school level to be committed daily to the betterment of these student athletes and these coaches, trying to lead them at various times. I know for me, the athletic director that I had at my high school, just was a great person. And I think it's one of those callings that we all have had, or, we've gotten to, that has really been a sense of passion for us to help others through sport. And I can't, again, describe to you how much I appreciate what you do. I think we end up being in college the beneficiaries of what the hard work and commitment that you've been about at the high school level, mentoring your coaches and mentoring young, students that aspire to play at the collegiate level. I thought I'd maybe just have some introductory comments about just the COVID-19 and some of the leadership things that occurred here at Northwestern. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. It's been surreal for you. It's been surreal for me. It's nothing that obviously any of us ever expected. I know the dates, pretty well, but I was in New York on March the 10th, and I was selected a few years ago to be one of 10 college administrators to put together March Madness, the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and this is year 3 for me. It's a labor of love. It's an awful lot of work, but it's such a joyful committee to be a part of that in the end tries to get the selection of 68 teams right, that we all enjoy in the month of March and then early April. We had gone to dinner with CBS and Turner in New York City. That's where they bring you, and then they quarantine you for, it's amazing where we're at now, because the committee is quarantined for that week as we put the brackets together and select the teams. And we went from the 10th of March to the 11th and talking with the infectious disease people and all of the CDC experts and health experts regionally and nationally. And we, went from a tournament that was what we thought, could potentially be similar to years past tournaments to, I think if you remember, we went to a pause and said we were still going to have an NCAA tournament, but that we were now going to have it without fans, because that was what the experts were telling us, to the 12th of March, within a 48-hour period, canceling the NCAA men's basketball tournament, canceling all the winter championships of the NCAA. So all of the, the wrestlings and women's basketball, men's basketball, fencing, swimming and diving, indoor track and field. There's just so many. And then the next day, being part, of a group that ultimately had to describe to their student athletes that not only were the winter sports canceled, but the spring sports were canceled as well. And so it's heartbreaking for all of us, as we love the positions we fill and the relationships we have with our coaches and student athletes. But I look back at that 12th of March, and I raced back from New York to Chicago and to Evanston, where Northwestern University is located, and then just started to kind of roll up my sleeves like many of you did at your schools, where there wasn't a lot of time because we were trying to get our student athletes. We have 523 student athletes. We're trying to get them home, and home means a lot of things. It means all over the country and all over the world, but trying to get them back to their families as safely as we possibly could. And then also trying to get the staff of 241 to their places. We went to a remote working model immediately that weekend. The campus kind of allowed us to decide on our own. We decided early to do that. A few days later, campus decided to do that with the entire university. And so life has been similar for us as athletic directors, whether you're at the college level or you're at the high school level. You're trying to communicate, you're trying to stay connected, you're trying to be out in front of decisions, as well as you're just trying to be a caring friend, a caring supervisor, a caring colleague or mentor for all of those out there that are suffering. And there isn't a group in the world that isn't suffering right now. Sports is a beautiful distraction and something that we love at every level, elementary, high school, collegiate, professionally. And so, I would just maybe wrap up this part of it by just describing a little bit about the last 6 weeks and how they've taken place. At the national level, have stayed engaged with NCAA, because there's rules that have changed and what you can do virtually with your student athletes, and a moratorium on recruiting, which affects our high school student athletes. So there's been an awful lot of rules and regulations and NCAA work that we've had to do as collegiate administrators. Then you look at your conference, no different than your conferences in every area that you're spanning across our country. You're trying to stay together. It always becomes competitive with us in athletics, right? We're always trying to get a leg up on somebody and a competitive advantage. But at a time like this, we've all tried to stand down and really just try to lead on what's best for the conference. And we've done some of those things in the Big Ten Conference. We've shut our facilities down to everybody. And we don't have any of our student athletes on campus. There's some of the student athletes are living off campus, but they're not allowed to come onto campus. So we tried to take sometimes division that occurs about, well, they're working out on one campus, they're using facilities at another school. We really tried to eliminate that and make sure that what was driven home to all of our coaches was that it's the safety, health, and welfare of our student athletes and staff that is paramount. And that's the decisions that we're going to make are going to be driven by that and that principle. So there have been daily calls with the administrative staff, assistant ADs, associate ADs, daily calls with our coaches, daily calls with the university officials. And I've gotten, over the last couple of weeks, gotten to all 19 teams here at Northwestern, where I've had a chance to Zoom with them at least one time, if not multiple times, just to get a feel for how the student athletes are doing. And I think they really appreciate that. They appreciate hearing from you in ways that that I know that you're already doing at each of your schools. I'll finish maybe from a personal standpoint, and then I can answer any questions that you have, Amanda or Ira or any of the athletic directors or athletic administrators. But all of this stuff becomes personal, and those, you care about those coaches and you care about the students and the student athletes. It's personal for me too. I love our student athletes and I love our coaches and I love our administrators, and we're in this fight together in normal circumstances, but we're really locked in arms now with something that's none of us have ever faced. But it also has touched me personally. I have a son who, my oldest of 5 children of my wife Laura and I, is a track student athlete at the University of Notre Dame. He's a sophomore. And the winter season for him was canceled midstream right before their championships. And obviously their outdoor season was canceled before it even began. So I have that perspective. I also have a senior daughter in high school that's a soccer player. She's going to go on to play at Yale next year. And in Illinois, the girls' soccer season ends up being in the springtime. And she's captain of her team and was really excited about the season, just like all of our student athletes were. And that was, her season was eliminated before it even got started. So I live with it every day. I see it on their faces, just like you do. You see it in your coaches' faces. You see it in your own family's faces. You all have your own examples. But I think the more we can try to make it right for them, to try to get them to this new normal, as I know that word's used a lot, but try to get them into the e-learning, which is a bear, and they don't like it very much, but try to get them to do some virtual training, to be able to work out a little bit, to send them programs that they can stay involved in a safe way, right? Every area is a little different. If you're in one situation that may be really shelter in place and don't want you to go out at all, and other places where the weather may be good and there's some distancing there, you can do some things. But to try to lead them in a way where, as disruptive as this time is for everybody, that they have a sense of support, that everything that they love, their coaches and administrators and their school still is supporting them, even from a virtual standpoint. So that was maybe 8 or 10 minutes introductory comments that I hope maybe hit the topics you're thinking about. And now I'm happy to just engage in anything that maybe you're thinking about or any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Jim. The one thing I want to kick off with is coaches. How were you, if you can give us some advice in terms of really engaging your coaches from a virtual standpoint? Obviously, we talk about this as a new normal, and it's going to be this way for a while. What are some of the things you guys have done there at Northwestern to really help your coaches really connect with the student athletes, even from a virtual standpoint?
Sure. Two ways I'd answer that. We've gone to a little progression here. Since this is week 6, we were having daily calls with our coaches. And I think there's a calmness about seeing each other. And so even when our agenda was not long, it was really important for the 19 head coaches and myself and the administration to be on these Zoom calls, which is the wonderful piece of the technology that we benefit from in 2020. And we would come up with agendas administratively. We talk about, what have you done with your student athletes? How often have you contacted them? Do you have any issues? What are the things that we can help with? We formulated plans to send them nutrition packets. I know the resources are different at college than high school, but we're all trying to feed them the right way. We're all trying to make sure from a nutrition standpoint that they have some kind bars and they have some, protein bars and some snacks. And, some of those things are perishable. And we bought those, and we they don't do any good sitting here. And so we sent some care packages out to our student athletes, and we formulated that with our coaches. And we're going to do another one here in May. But those calls were daily, and they were very effective because we were talking about a lot of things, right? At first we were talking about, well, we're going to come back to play and we're going to resume school in the spring. And now, at least in the state of Illinois and in college athletics, obviously the schedule's been canceled. I think the state of Illinois was going to let the student athletes know tomorrow about the spring sports. But there was hope at the very beginning that maybe we could still play. So you have those kinds of conversations. Now we've gone to kind of an every other day meeting with the coaches. We've also had these team meetings, which are good and good for administrators to be on, ADs and assistant ADs to be on with the teams. So the engagement with the student athletes, and we would talk about all forms that I know you already are doing some of these things. And that is, what do the academics look like? And are the student athletes having any issues with the e-learning and the virtual learning? And then we would go into, issues of training, et cetera. But then, a big part for us, even with my staff and my coaches, is the mental health piece of this thing. It's really taken its toll on everybody, and trying to do and service those that we could see were really suffering from a mental health perspective, and whatever resources you have in your community or your schools, make sure that those coaches and those student athletes know that they have an opportunity to use that. The coaches have gone also to a coaches only forum, which has been fun for them. And what they're doing is just tricks of the trade and recruiting and nuances and game strategies and leadership development. And so they have a book that they read through the course of a couple weeks. And so they're doing some of that kind of stuff. I'm also doing that with my staff. We do quotes of the week. We do articles of the week, or if somebody's read a good book, we spend about 10 or 15 minutes just on some professional development where we can't go and maybe sit in an auditorium and listen to another coach or listen to an administrator. We can still have some of that professional development just through the Zoom calls. And they've been great. We've tried to make it lighthearted at times and serious at other times. But again, that connectivity that we all need on our daily lives in order for us to continue to move our organization forward, because school is going to come back at some point, and we're going to resume play at the high school level and at the collegiate level. And shame on any of us if we just stand still too long and don't really start looking forward. So some of that. And then the final piece of that, Ira, is just, I think this is not, if it's spiritual, it's spiritual. If it's not, it's not. But I really believe this. And this is about hope. This is about, we have to be really the agents of hope. And that is death and darkness and destruction, as we're seeing all around the world. Any of our beliefs, tell us this, that's never the last word. And so it is about the future and opportunity and brightness and life. And we're going to resume being together. We're going to resume to play. And I think for kids and young people and adults, we have to feel that. We have to feel that from the people that we're connecting to. And so I've also really challenged my student athletes, though I know they feel badly, and, there's no prom, there's no spring sports, and it's tough, the younger you are, that they all have a responsibility to think about the positives and to think about maybe where we're going instead of where we find ourselves right now. But it's tough because everybody's suffering. People are losing jobs and financial issues of families and the rest of it. It's it's so difficult. But that maybe I hope answers that question about what we're doing with our staff and with our coaches.
Yeah, Amanda, thanks, Jim.
Hey, Jim, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And as ADs, we kind of deal with things and have to look at kind of that big picture, like you said, rather than being reactive, we want to be proactive. So here's my question to you. Obviously, we know that there's talk about fall and what's going to happen in the fall. And I think every AD in the country and coach is worried about revenue and budgets and how that's going to look, and the implication of do we have to drop sports? Is that what districts are going to do? Ira and I were talking about this the other day, and I feel like maybe it's time for us to be proactive and come up with some of those solutions together as ADs to present to the districts, to present to the state office, just to give them possible ideas. I mean, I don't think any of us say that we know everything, but this is such unprecedented thing. It's new to everybody, and rather than just say, "Hey, we're going to cancel everything," maybe give some options of maybe we don't have to cancel. Maybe if we did this, this, and this, or here's different scenarios. I'm sure you've had conversations about that. What's your thought on that one?
No, great question, Amanda. And it's the things you're thinking about, but you may not have been asked yet by your high school to look at modeling, to look at what does your department look like, 20%, 10%, 15%, 25% reduction. And so our university has not asked us to do that yet, but I've asked my coaches and I've asked my staff to do that, because it's to your point about trying to be proactive. And I don't think you should be concerned about having those kinds of conversations with coaches. Everybody's seeing what's happening around the world. We're all going to hope for the best, but we're going to plan for, some really difficult times. And so if we do some of that modeling, it forces us to dig in a little bit about what's essential and maybe what's not essential. And I know the high school budget process, not like you, but in a way that I just know that there's not a lot of resources at times and in a lot of schools. But I think you'd be surprised at where you can be creative. And some of that is, a more regionally based scheduling standpoint. And so I don't know where all the schools are. I don't know all the conferences, the affiliations about how far you're traveling. But when you're in more of the rural areas, it's more difficult. More of the urban areas, it's an opportunity now to really look at ways that you can schedule and program in a way where maybe you don't have to go on that cross country trip or that interstate trip or something that you've usually done in the past. Maybe it's decreasing one competition or two competitions across 15 sports, across 20 sports, across 25 sports in order to reduce the overall, financial support that you would need to run an athletic department at the high school level. There's creative ways to do that. Maybe you shorten the season a little bit, but it doesn't take the opportunities away. You can still have the numbers. And that, to me, I was asked, I was on Paul Feinbaum's show on Friday, on a radio show. He's down in the SEC. He's got a national show. He's a wonderful guy. He's really smart in college sports. And that, to me, was really he asked a similar question. And the statement was, we're about broad-based programming. We love football. I get it. We love football. Football's king in the country and all the rest of it. But we love girls basketball as well. And we love girls soccer and boys tennis and golf and wrestling and the rest. And so if we're really committed to broad-based programming, then there should be equal distribution about how we figure out the financial piece of this thing. And I think it can be doable. I really do. And I think it can be done without elimination of sports and elimination of opportunities. And so, those are just some of the things that I've talked to our coaches about, that I've talked to our staff about. And I just know, I just think we don't need to go to the East Coast every time we play a competition, or to the West Coast or down South. We can still kind of come, closer together in playing in more of a regional base. I even think about, and I haven't brought this up with anybody, but even in the Big Ten, we stretch from, Rutgers and Maryland to the East Coast to, Nebraska, more to the Midwest, but to the furthest point west. Maybe you create some pods where some of the schools in that Northeast corner play more than the schools, more in the Western hemisphere type of thing. And I think you can do that based on your region. It doesn't mean you don't play everybody in your conference, but maybe you play a little bit more with those schools that are really close to you, and where you can save a few dollars. I've asked the staff to think about what it means to reduce salaries by 5 or 10%, and maybe it takes some furloughs, and you don't just do it with a group, with a few people, you do it with a group. Like if we do a furlough, maybe I should sit out a day or two a month, whatever that looks like in your school district or whatever that looks like in your college athletics department. So I think there's really creative ways in order for us to continue our commitment to broad-based programming for boys and girls across the country, and for the coaches that have poured their heart and souls into those programs, before we get to a place where we really have to seriously talk about, hey, let's eliminate 3, 5, 7 sports. I pray, but I also intellectually trying to do everything I can to make sure we don't have to go down that road.
I love it. No, I agree. I know for us, we talked about, normally we start August 1st for fall. So I spoke about don't schedule anything until at least mid-September, and try to kind of, maybe if you scheduled 10 non-league games, now you only schedule 5, eliminate some of that beginning stuff, just so there's less canceling if we have to do that. But no, I think it's definitely something we all have to really start thinking about and having those hard conversations. And again, like you said, it doesn't have to be a hard conversation. As long as it's done across the board and we're all doing it together and they know the reason, it's a lot easier of a conversation. So let me ask, sorry, Ira, just one more question for Jim. If you were speaking in front of student athletes right now, what is the best advice you could give them dealing with all of this? It's been over 30 days. Obviously, people are getting stir crazy. I know at our school, they're jumping the fence to try to get on the field. What would you say to them?
First, I'd ask them about the word gratitude and to be grateful. And I know they're suffering and seasons are lost, and maybe it's the last time, someone going to put the jersey on. But there's somebody that's suffering even greater to what they are. So I've said that to our group. So that's one. 2 is I really believe what I said earlier about hope, about death and destruction is never the final say. That they should stay optimistic and they should be ready. They should use this time to get better, and not, just kind of wallow away a little bit. And the 3rd is they need to do something in their community to help others. And I've challenged them, and they don't even have to leave their house, because I know there's some areas that they're not supposed to leave their house. But one of the things that, I'm really proud of my kids in my own house, they've partnered with our church, and they're calling all of the individuals that are 70 years and older and just checking on them. And there's people in our area that don't have anybody checking on them. And there's people in our area that don't have somebody calling them regularly. And a chance to hear a friendly voice and to build a relationship with somebody that's senior of age, I think really warms the heart of the people that they're calling. I hear some of the phone calls and the rest of it. It's been great. And they're able to get some groceries for them as well and do it in a safe way. In our area, you can go, obviously, with a mask and go to the grocery store and the rest, and they just drop it off on their front porch. So that's just one example, Amanda, of really getting our student athletes to give back right now. That it takes it away from, hey, I'm suffering, I miss my friends and I'm not playing my sport. And I know a lot of you are doing that with your student athletes as well as your coaches. So this idea of gratitude, right? So being thankful. The second is hope that there's going to be a better day and we're going to be back together. And then kind of a call to action, like, let's not wait around. Let's go help a lot of people that are suffering right now. Go send some cards to the doctors and to the nurses at the local hospital, right? Go provide them some food if you can to maybe the homeless center, where those places seem to be growing as we go through a really tough economic time. So that's just some things that I would say relative to our student athletes.
I love it.
Jim, a couple more questions and we'll let you go.
Sure.
The one thing I want to ask, I know a lot of ADs on here have student athletes who are planning to go to the next level from a recruiting standpoint. I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, a big shoe drop with the NCAA where they said, hey, the SAT and ACT, now, they're not counting that this year. You can go on. Do you expect anything else to happen from an NCAA standpoint for the 2020 recruiting class or even the 2021 recruiting class? How are you guys approaching that from your level?
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of two lenses. One is the NCAA lens, and that is a little bit of the softening of requirements, right? The SAT, ACT, core GPA, some of the core classes. So there's a little bit of that movement that's gone on because the NCAA understands with the pandemic that a lot of schools are going to pass and fail and maybe not letter grades. Some are, some aren't. So there's some, again, softening of that. The other piece of it is there's no on-campus recruiting. There's no off-campus recruiting. Colleges can't have student athletes come on campus. Colleges can't leave campus to go to high schools or go to, people's homes. But recruiting is still going on. The virtual capabilities we have, we have all types of programs for our 19 programs that they've created about how they're going to sell Northwestern. The student athletes, that are in high school, I've had a chance to speak to some of them. Some of the coaches have asked me, the college coaches have asked me to jump on and just talk to the parents. So that's been fun because I would normally have them in my office when they came to campus. So that engagement from the coaches, I would just encourage the athletic directors to stay on that trail, to be engaged with the colleges at the level of where they think their kids are going to be able to aspire to, especially that senior class that maybe there's still some that haven't, committed to a place, that they really, really can help those families and those seniors in high school find a landing spot. And then certainly those underclass men and women, that are juniors, freshmen, sophomore, to reach out to the colleges if they hadn't heard, from them in a while. So there is some softening from an NCAA rule standpoint. There's some strict, compliance, non-negotiable things where on-campus, off-campus recruiting, but the virtual piece has really been helpful. And we don't want there to be kind of a delay in the recruiting piece of this because we know how important it is as it funnels the high school student athletes to college. So there is still an opportunity to do that virtually and through other forms of communication with the college coaches.
Amanda, you want to ask a question? I saw there was something in the chat.
Yeah. So Jim, what would you? Obviously, we have a little bit of extra time on our hands. So if you could recommend any good books for ADs to read that could potentially help them be better leaders, be better communicators, be able to speak with their coaches, players, all of those types of things, what would you recommend?
All right, so I'm going to give you the book that I have. I don't have it in front of me, but I just got it recommended today. It's in our daily clips. And then I gotta confess something here. So just bear with me here as I look this thing up. It's a leadership book that I think you would really enjoy. It's outside of sports. I'm just trying to find the email, and then I have to absolutely confess because this isn't me at all. It's called No Time for Spectators, and it's authored by the 18th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. His name is Marty Dempsey, and it's about leadership, and it's about lessons that have mattered most in his life. Again, No Time for Spectators, which I think would be outstanding because that's what we're being asked to do right now. This is no time for us to be sitting on the sideline and kind of waiting this thing out. This is a time for action for all of us as leaders. So read that book by Marty Dempsey, and maybe we'll get back together sometime, Ira, and have a chat about it. But I'm not much of a TV watcher at all. I just am not, unless it's sports related. So somehow I got convinced to watch Tiger King and Joe Exotic, and so. I mean, I can't even describe, what that's been over watching those 7 episodes. So I don't know if any of you have binge watched that, but, I got to confess I did that. I don't know what I feel after watching all that. But I was cleansed. I was cleansed last night watching The Final Dance, those 2 episodes that I think many people watched yesterday on ESPN that was, you know, is kind of chronological of the you know, the 6th championship that the Chicago Bulls had with Michael Jordan, and being a Chicagoan, a lifelong Chicagoan, that kind of cleansed me a little bit after, you know, the other nonsense that I watched. So anyways, that's more than you wanted, Amanda.
That was really incredible. That Michael Jordan thing last night. I've been a Jordan fan my entire life. And just one, being able to have a sports something that like you can watch and you're excited that it's coming on was nice.
Right.
And 2, I was like, I told my kids, don't talk to me. Give me 2 hours.
Yeah.
Very much Michael. But it was great. Yeah. So no, I appreciate that. So if somebody put it in the chat too. So No Time for Spectators by Marty Dempsey. Great.
Yep.
Thanks. With Jim, we know you're busy. We appreciate the time. We look forward to catching up with you down the road. Thanks for everything you do for student athletes and your coaches and people around the country. And thanks for always being a great mentor to me. I appreciate it.
You got it. And again, thank you, men and women on this call. I really appreciate, we all appreciate what you're doing at the high school level. We can't do what we're doing at the college level without you. And so my hat's off to you, and my sincere and heartfelt gratitude and thanks. So be safe. We're going to be together. We're going to resume high school sports. We're going to resume college sports, and we're going to see a better day here moving forward. So God bless everybody. Take care. Thanks Ira.
Jim.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Jim. He was
All
great.
right.
He was great. Another great speaker. Yeah. Very inspirational.
Great stuff. Amanda, you want to jump into the agenda?
Yes. So he talked a little bit. The first thing was the NCAA Info-student athlete rules. He talked about that a little bit. Ira, you want to go into that a little bit on what you know with the NCAA and the stuff they've come out with?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get my guy to come on. He texted me back today and said, "Hey, not yet. Give me another week." So we'll see how that works out. I know there's a lot of rules that are still coming down the pipe, especially with in terms of, you know, some classes and admissions and those sort of things. I think they still have some things to sort out from an NCAA standpoint, and credits and what they're going to accept, what they're not going to accept. So all that's still coming. So stay tuned for that. That's kind of a TBD.
Well, and I know that they talked too about, you know, the pass fails. A lot of schools are going to credit, no credit. How do they handle that? I know that some have suspended the SAT, ACT. I know in California, some schools have suspended it for a couple years. So I know some of our student athletes are excited about that, that they don't have to worry about that, you know, second semester requirement. The second one was hiring coaches. Ira, you and I spoke a little bit about how do you hire coaches, you know, with all of this going on, doing it virtually, having interviews virtual, you know, being able to kind of see them and see their body language and if they're a good fit, asking those character questions like we spoke about. Can you hire? Should you hire? And, you know, the expectations of knowing the unknown, you know, like what's your thought on that, Ira?
Yeah, we're in the process of hiring a couple of coaches right now, and we have to do it because the standpoint of, like Jim talked about, we got to assume that we're going to be playing next year, and we got to assume we're going to be, you know, going in the fall at some point. So we need to, you know, get these coaches on board. They need to get their connect with the student athletes. So I feel like you have to hire coaches. I think the couple of things that I would think about, you know, when you're hiring coaches now, I would, you know, do you want to take as great of risk as you may have taken in the past of completely hiring people unknown? I would probably say no. You know, you may want to narrow that a little bit and saying, you know what, I know a little bit about this coach. I know a little bit about them from a standpoint, or have somebody who really strongly recommended this coach. And then you can obviously, you know, do your Zoom calls and work through it that way. But I would advise to do maybe even one more round than you would normally do. Say, for instance, if you're only going to do 2 rounds with coaches that you normally hire, so maybe this time with the Zoom calls, you do 3 rounds because you can dig a little bit deeper because you don't get that personal interaction that you would normally get. But my advice would be to continue on with your search process, not just with coaches, also with staff and anyone else you need in your athletic department. Because what you don't want to happen is is, you know, if we get back in the fall and you haven't made a move on all these things, you really need to move forward, but just be much more thorough than maybe you would have been in the past.
Yeah, some of the chat things too. Gary says, you know, the quality of your questions are key now more than ever, for sure. You know, you're going to have to ask questions that will help bring out if they're going to be part of your program and who you want to be part of your program. Second question was, how are we, you know, making keeping existing coaches a priority? I think that your AD needs to be reaching out. They need to be having that communication. It needs to be not just text, but calling or doing a Zoom where they can see your face and they know, like, I know it's hard. I know you're struggling. We appreciate what you do. Possibly, you know, having them forward thinking as well. Like, what do you want to do next year? Start thinking about some of the stuff so that they're not just wallowing in the whole, you know, spring got canceled. Let's look forward thinking on what we can do next. Another one too is, I know once somebody, Jason said his district put a moratorium on hiring coaches. I think that I would possibly ask them to reconsider that. I think that by doing that, it's really kind of hurting your chances of hiring good quality people. I mean, the people that aren't doing that are going to get those high quality coaches. You know, don't say Ira and Amanda said, but I would just say, you know, I would ask them just to reconsider, because you can do virtual interviews and you can do questions and you can do those things, which I think, you know, are all important. And then the next one is, you know, what are good questions do we use when we're hiring coaches? You know, I think the Inside Out initiative that I've touched on before, they have interview questions on there, character-based questions, like what would your kids say being coached by you? And that's a really interesting question, because it makes them look at themselves and say, you know, gee, I don't know. Or maybe they'll say that I'm very inspiring and that I'm positive and that I bring different things to the table than just the sport itself. So I think things like that, for sure. And one more thing, Ira, is the NCAA next week has a call that I actually registered for too. They're hosting a webinar on all the changes for NCAA. So if you guys didn't see that, a lot of them sent out emails to every AD. I would suggest going to NCAA, click on that webinar just for information so that we can let our student athletes know as well. Anything else on that, Ira?
Nope.
Okay, so no, that's what Ira and Amanda said. Please don't do that. Someone chatted that. Okay, the next one is the budget cuts, and I spoke a little bit with Jim about that. But you know, I think we have to start looking at, and I know Mike Giammi from Del Norte High School in California, he and I spoke the other day, and he brought up a very good point, is we need to be, as ADs, we need to be kind of proactive. Like, let's say that they don't start football until September 1st, or any fall sports till September 1st. What does that look like? Like, if that means we miss 2 football games, this is how much money we're going to lose, which means we have to limit uniforms. We have to limit the budgets we have for what? Can we eliminate buses at some point so that we save some of that money so that we don't have to eliminate any type of sports, like kind of Jim said? Is there a way that we can come up with a plan that we can send to our districts, send to our state offices? And again, it's not that we think we know everything, but this is unprecedented. And a lot of these people don't know what they're doing either. And it's not a knock on them, it's just something new. So the more we can do together, sorry, trash truck driving by my house. The more that we can do together, and the more planning we can do, and hopefully help them find some solutions. Maybe the solution won't be, let's just cancel all of them. Maybe it'll be, hey, well, you know, this is a good point. Maybe we can start looking at it this way. And if we only miss this amount, then we'd still be able to do this, this, and this. So what's your thought on that, Ira?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think being proactive is very important. And then, you know, asking yourself, you know, how much revenue are you bringing in? I'm sure your business office can tell you, you know, through the sports that you have, and, you know, what does that look like? You know, because I think there is going to be obviously some cuts, you know, or somebody that's going to come up. You know, hopefully it's not a lot. Maybe it's 5% or less. You know, hopefully it's not a lot, but I think there is going to be something. So how can you be proactive in putting together a plan before it's even asked to you, to your administration, to your principal, to your you know, head of schools, and say, hey, here's what I've been thinking about. Here's the plan. you know, and it may not be tied to, football or whatever, gate revenue. I mean, for us, and this is going to sound really funny, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but like, we don't charge to get into our athletic events. So, at all. So, yeah, I know, Amanda, I know. So that piece wouldn't be something that would be feasible or wouldn't work for me. So what are the other ways, to think about? But yeah, so I think the biggest point is to be proactive and be able to present them a plan of ways that you've really saved money. And they may give it back to you and say, you know what, thanks, we don't need it right now. Or, hey, you know what, we looked at some other areas of the school, but at least you've brought that to them, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and I think, it kind of brings it to the next 2 or 3 things that we had discussed. So the fall sport implications, I think being part of the solution, even if you're bringing up ideas to your district or ideas to your principal, try to help with those things. Districts and help planning, timelines. Okay, if we start August 1, if we start September 1, if we start October 1, kind of giving them a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 type scenario. And then rules for returning. Like, I know we talked about in California, well, maybe we have masks. Everybody wears masks once they actually get the lift. Maybe we have where we check everybody's temperature. Maybe they do the thing on the way into football games, and at least it would get kids on the field and we'd be able to start getting some fans. But how would that look? And again, it's going to take all of us together, all of your ideas, our ideas, putting them all together and figuring out, okay, this is what would work and this is what won't work. And it may be different by state, it may be different by district and all of those things. But I think at least having some type of planning, timeline, solutions that we can bring up with those people could help, and maybe would include you in those conversations that maybe you're not included in yet. I know for my district, they're so focused on online learning, no offense to them, I get it, but they have to start thinking about sports. They have to start thinking about fall and implications of how all of this is going to work and those. So, that again brings into the admin district's state share is getting that information out there. And what is the information? I mean, I think for us, it's the implementation of, depending on when they do the lift of all the social distancing and all of that. And until that happens, we won't go back at all. So, I'm trying to be proactive and let the kids still have that, like Jim said, the hope that we are still going to play. And I do believe we will play, but I think it's going to be very limited on how it works. And I think it needs to be done the correct way. What is the correct way? Does anybody truly know until we do it? Not really.
Right. Perfect. What's next on the agenda, Amanda?
Pretty much hot topics. And again, a lot of the people have brought up similar mental health stuff. We've added some mental health stuff to our website. I did add our mental health survey that somebody out there shared with me. I can't remember exactly who, but if you can send it to me in the chat, I'll give you credit for that for sure. The NCAA meeting, if you go to, I think it's just the NCAA site, there should be, or if you Google webinar NCAA, it should pop up. If it doesn't, I can find it. If you shoot me an email, I can try to send it out to you as well. But honestly, it's gonna, now we kind of have to start thinking of the next phase is, okay, what are we gonna do now? Rather than just kind of sitting in this holding pattern, I think it's, what do we do next and what steps do we take? I know I asked our finance guy to kind of give me a breakdown of each game and what we miss and what it's gonna look like if we don't have that. And it's, as well, it's staggering for sure, and it's concerning, but it's also doable. If you really think about it, we can get through the next few years if we needed to with the same uniforms if we have to. And I think kids are just going to be happy to be out there to play, and I think coaches will be just happy to be out there coaching. And as long as we support them and we're okay, I think they'll be okay. That's pretty much all I got, Ira.
Well, I think that's great. Again, we want to thank everybody for keep coming on this call. Continue to spread the word. Next week is going to be really big. You don't want to miss it. We're going to have a special guest, and we're going to really focus on fundraising. And that is going to be a real big theme of next week, to talk about fundraising and different ways to do it in this climate. Because as we know, We want, that's a big part of a lot of our athletic departments. And what can we do to help supplement? What can we do to help, help those budgets? And that may be, doing some great fundraising. So we're going to really break down the X's and O's of fundraising as it relates to high school athletics and how we can get better at that next week.
We'll be back to
Amanda,
next week, Ira.
pardon me?
Back to Wednesdays next week.
Yep, back to Wednesdays next week. We just switched it up today because Jim couldn't do it on Wednesday, but we'll be back to Wednesday at our normal time next week. So, let all your colleagues know. Again, we're going to try to keep doing this and bringing great information as long as you guys are excited about it and really can benefit from it. I mean, that's the whole reason behind us doing this. Amanda?
Remember, if you have someone that wants to join, I know Michael said something, you can go to nationaladresource.com. You can click on the Google form on the front, and I send out the agenda and the link to everyone that is signed up on there. You can always go to my Twitter too, @CarlsbadAD. You can email me at awaterscbad@gmail.com. And then Ira, if you could share yours as well.
CHIR@GulliverSchools.org, CHIR@GulliverSchools.org, Gulliver_AD on Twitter, and you can find me on Instagram as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I know many of you have reached out, and we will definitely try to help as many as we can. Share this Zoom meeting on social media to get all the people who missed it, so they can jump on and catch some of this information. And again, we're really looking forward to next week. We're gonna have a great special guest, and we're gonna break down fundraising, the X's and O's of fundraising as it relates to what we're trying to do. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Always a pleasure. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.